Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony and watched the stars pass by through the main window. The ship moved fast through space toward Centauri Station, where the monthly Galactic Council meeting would happen. Jake had made this trip many times before, but it never got easier. The Harmony was a good ship, but it had no weapons at all, not even a small gun for protection. This was the way things had to be for all human ships. The Treaty of Stellar Peace made sure of that. Humans were not allowed to build warships or carry weapons in space. The other alien races said humans were too dangerous and too quick to fight. They said humans could not be trusted with real weapons, so Earth had to agree to only build transport ships and cargo haulers, ships that could carry people and supplies but could never fight back if something bad happened. Admiral Lisa Barnes sat in her office on the Harmony, reading the same old reports about the treaty. She had been the head of United Earth Space Command for 8 years now. Every day she had to look at the rules that kept humanity weak in space. The Zelkari Empire had huge warships that could destroy planets. The bug-like Vorthak had fleets of ships that looked like giant insects and could swarm any enemy. Even the peaceful Lumeri had ships with shields and weapons that could protect their worlds. But humans got nothing. They were treated like children, who could not handle dangerous toys. Earth had tried many times to ask for permission to build just a few small warships for protection. Every time the Council said no, the aliens always gave the same answer. Humans were too violent and too unpredictable to have weapons in space. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked in the science section of the ship. He had spent years studying all the different alien races in the Council. He knew their strengths and weaknesses better than most humans. The Zelkari were old and very powerful. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of what humans had. The Vorthak were like a hive mind where millions of bugs could work together as one. The Lumeri were smart and peaceful, but they still had weapons when they needed them. Only humans were different. Only humans were kept weak on purpose. Walsh had tried to understand why the aliens were so afraid of letting humans have weapons. Maybe it was because humans had fought so many wars on Earth before they joined the Council. Maybe it was because humans were willing to take big risks that other races would never try. Whatever the reason, it meant that Earth was always at the mercy of others. The Harmony reached Centauri Station and docked at the human section. The station was huge and had areas for all the different alien races. Each section was built to match what that race needed. The human area was small compared to the others. It had to be since humans only had transport ships and cargo vessels. They did not need the big military docking bays that the other races used. Jake walked through the station toward the council chambers. He passed groups of tall gray Zelkari in their flowing robes. He saw clusters of insect-like Vorthak clicking and buzzing to each other. The blue-skinned Lumeri moved in graceful groups while their head tentacles swayed gently. All of these races had the right to defend themselves. All of them except humans. The council meeting started like it always did. Representative Thexnor of the Zelkari Empire spoke first. He was one of the most important leaders in the council, and he had never liked humans very much. Thexnor talked about trade routes and shipping schedules. He mentioned some small problems with pirates in the outer systems, but said the council fleets were handling everything just fine. Admiral Barnes listened to all of this from the human section of the chamber. She wanted to speak up about the pirate attacks. Human cargo ships had been hit 3 times in the last month. The crews had no way to fight back and had to hope that council warships would come to help them. Sometimes the warships came in time. Sometimes they did not, but Barnes knew better than to interrupt. The last time a human had spoken out of turn in the council chambers, all human shipping permits had been suspended for 2 weeks. Earth could not afford to make the aliens angry. Too many human colonies depended on trade with the other races to survive. Dr. Walsh took notes on everything the aliens said. He was looking for patterns and clues about what was really happening in the galaxy. The council always presented a picture of peace and order, but Walsh suspected there were problems they were not talking about. The alien races were all much older than humanity. They had been dealing with threats in space for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. The meeting was almost over when Commander Ryan Peters sent an urgent message from the edge of human space. Peters commanded the monitoring station at Kepler's Gate, which was the farthest human outpost from Earth. His message made everyone in the council chamber stop talking. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet of unknown ships approaching the outer rim territories. The fleet was huge, bigger than anything any of the Council races had ever built. The ships did not match any known designs, and they were not responding to communication attempts. Worse, they were moving fast toward the inhabited systems and seemed to be heading straight for the colonies. Thexanor immediately took control of the situation. He ordered all Council fleets to move toward the unknown threat. He sent messages to every military commander in Zelkari space to prepare for possible combat. The insect leaders of the Vorthak began buzzing loudly as they coordinated their hive fleets. Even the peaceful Lumeri started organizing their defensive ships. Admiral Barnes stood up and offered to help with Earth's transport fleet. She said human ships could carry supplies and evacuate civilians if needed. She promised that Earth would do everything possible to support the Council in this crisis. Thexanor looked at her with what might have been pity or disgust. He said that human cargo ships and passenger liners would only get in the way of real warships. He told Barnes that humans should stay in their own systems and let the adults handle the serious business of war. The message from Commander Peters got worse. The unknown fleet had reached the outer colonies and was attacking everything in sight. 3 Lumeri settlements had been destroyed completely. The aliens who lived there were all dead. The attacking ships did not seem interested in capturing territory or taking prisoners. They just destroyed everything and kept moving toward the core systems. Peters watched from his monitoring station as the alien armada swept through space like a dark wave. His station had sensors and communication equipment, but no weapons at all. If the unknown ships turned toward human space, there would be nothing he could do to stop them. Earth's entire fleet was made up of ships that could run away but could never fight back. The Council meeting ended in chaos as the alien leaders rushed back to their ships. Emergency alerts were going out across the galaxy. Every military force was being called to defend against this new threat. The unknown attackers were being called many things, but the name that stuck was simple and scary. The Devourers, Admiral Barnes, returned to the Harmony feeling helpless and angry. For 37 years, humans had followed the rules and stayed weak. They had trusted the other races to protect them and keep the galaxy safe. Now something terrible was coming, and Earth had been left completely defenseless on purpose. Jake started the engines and prepared to leave the station. The Harmony would carry the news back to Earth along with orders for all human ships to stay close to home. As they pulled away from Centauri Station, Jake wondered what would happen if the Devourers decided to attack human space. The answer was simple and terrible. Humanity would have no choice but to die. 3 months had passed since the first Devourer attacks and the galaxy was in chaos. The mysterious invaders had conquered 17 star systems and showed no signs of stopping. Every day brought news of more destroyed colonies and more dead civilians. The Galactic Council's combined fleets were fighting hard, but they were losing ground with each battle. Admiral Lisa Barnes stood in her office reading the latest reports from the front lines. The Council was asking for more help from Earth, but only wanted human cargo ships and transport vessels. They needed humans to carry supplies and evacuate civilians while the real warships did the actual fighting. Barnes felt sick every time she had to send defenseless human crews into danger zones where Devourer ships might attack at any moment. But Admiral Barnes had a secret that even most of Earth's government did not know about. For 15 years, she had been running a project that violated every rule in the Treaty of Stellar Peace. If the aliens ever found out what humans had been building in secret, it would mean war with the entire Galactic Council. But Barnes believed that war was coming anyway, and humanity needed to be ready. She took a private shuttle to Luna and flew to coordinates that did not appear on any official map. The shuttle descended into what looked like an old mining crater, but was actually something much more important. Hidden beneath the lunar surface were tunnels and chambers that officially did not exist. The project was called Starforge, and it represented humanity's greatest act of rebellion against alien control. Chief Engineer Sam Mitchell met Barnes at the hidden entrance. He had been working on Starforge since the very beginning, when it was just a crazy idea about building better space habitats. Mitchell was a quiet man who never said much, but his work spoke for itself. Under his direction, thousands of humans had spent years digging deeper into Luna and building facilities that alien sensors could never detect. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster led Barnes through the main corridor of the underground facility. Foster had been a military engineer before joining Starforge, and she understood both construction and combat better than almost anyone else. The tunnels were huge and stretched for miles in every direction. Everywhere Barnes looked, She saw humans working on projects that were supposed to be impossible. The technology they had developed went far beyond what the Council believed humans could achieve. While alien races relied on energy shields and plasma weapons that had been used for thousands of years, humans had taken a completely different approach. They had focused on kinetic weapons and armor that could absorb massive amounts of damage. While still fighting back, Dr. Michelle Gray was the lead scientist for Starforge, and she had spent years developing new theories about space combat. She explained to Barnes that human ships were designed around a philosophy that alien species could not understand. Every human warship was built to be both a weapon and a target. They were designed to keep fighting even when they were being destroyed and to use their own destruction as a weapon against enemies. The human ships did not look anything like the elegant designs that alien races preferred. Where alien vessels were smooth and curved, human warships were angular and brutal. Every surface was covered with armor plates that could be ejected as high-speed projectiles. Every system was designed with multiple backups so the ship could keep fighting even after taking massive damage. Dr. Gray showed Barnes the main weapon system that humans had perfected. Instead of energy beams that could be blocked by shields, human ships carried railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. These projectiles could punch through any known armor and were almost impossible to stop once they were fired. The biggest human ships carried railguns that ran the entire length of the vessel and could fire projectiles the size of small buildings. But the real breakthrough was not just in weapons or armor. It was in the way humans approached space combat itself. Alien races fought battles like they were in the ocean, with ships maneuvering around each other and firing weapons when they had good shots. Humans fought like they were playing three-dimensional chess, calculating exactly where enemy ships would be and firing weapons that would arrive at that precise location at the perfect time. The centerpiece of the Starforge project was the USS Defiance, humanity's first true warship. The ship was massive and ugly compared to alien designs, but it was built for one purpose only: to kill enemy vessels as efficiently as possible while surviving long enough to kill more. Captain Ben Sullivan had been secretly training with a crew of volunteers who officially had died in mining accidents over the past few years. Sullivan had been a merchant marine captain before joining Starforge. He understood how to move big ships through space and how to manage crews under pressure, but he had also learned how to fight in ways that alien commanders would never expect. His ship could accelerate harder and turn faster than anything its size had a right to do. More importantly, it could take damage that would destroy most alien vessels and keep on fighting. The Defiance was just one of 47 completed warships hidden throughout the solar system. Some were built inside hollowed-out asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Others were constructed in the depths of gas-giant atmospheres where no alien scanner could reach them. The largest ships were built in facilities that had been carved out of small moons in disguise to look like natural formations. Every ship was different because humans had been experimenting with new designs and new weapons for 15 years. Some ships were fast scouts that could outrun anything the aliens had. Others were heavy assault vessels that could punch through enemy formations and keep going. The biggest ships were mobile fortresses that could anchor defensive lines and provide fire support for entire fleets. But the alien surveillance networks were getting better, and they were starting to notice unusual energy signatures coming from human space. The Zelkari had become suspicious about some of the mining operations that humans claimed to be running. They had requested permission to inspect several facilities, and Barnes knew she could not refuse without making them even more suspicious. The inspection team was scheduled to arrive at Luna in 2 days. War Commander Kethvor would be leading the team, and he was known for being very thorough in his investigations. If he found any evidence of illegal weapons development, it would mean the end of everything humans had worked for. Worse, it might mean the end of humanity itself, if the Council decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. Barnes had to make a choice that would determine the fate of her entire species. She could try to hide the Starforge project and hope the aliens did not find anything, but if they did find evidence, humanity would be caught in a lie that could never be explained away. Or she could reveal everything and hope that the current crisis with the Devourers would make the Council willing to forgive humanity's violations of the treaty. Captain Sullivan suggested a third option that was both simple and terrifying. When the aliens came to inspect Luna, they could show them exactly what humans had been building, not as a secret to be ashamed of, but as a weapon that the galaxy desperately needed. The Devourer invasion had proven that the old ways of thinking about galactic defense were not working. Maybe it was time for humanity to stop hiding and start fighting back. The decision would have to be made soon, because alien sensors were already detecting the energy buildup from Starforge facilities across the solar system. In 48 hours, the Zelkari inspection team would arrive, and humanity's greatest secret would finally be revealed. The only question was whether the galaxy was ready to see what humans could do when they stopped following the rules and started making their own. War Commander Kethvor arrived at Luna with 3 other Zelkari investigators and a full security team. His ship was sleek and powerful, bristling with weapons that could destroy the entire human moon if he decided it was necessary. Kethvor had been fighting wars for over 200 years, and he thought he had seen everything the galaxy could offer. He was wrong. Admiral Barnes met the inspection team at the official Luna base, which was exactly what it appeared to be: a simple mining and research facility with basic equipment and no weapons of any kind. Kethvor walked through the corridors, with his scanning devices looking for any sign that humans were violating the Treaty of Stellar Peace. His instruments detected nothing unusual at first, but deep beneath the surface, Captain Sullivan was making final preparations for something that would change the galaxy forever. The USS Defiance had been powered down for weeks to avoid detection, but now it was time to bring the ship online. Sullivan's crew moved through their startup procedures with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, but none of them knew if they would survive what came next. Lieutenant Colonel Foster watched the alien inspection team through hidden cameras as they moved through the upper levels of Luna base. She was in constant communication with Admiral Barnes through encrypted channels that the Zelkari could not intercept. Foster had spent her entire career preparing for war, but she had never imagined it would start like this. Dr. Gray monitored the power systems as the Defiance came online. The ship's massive reactor had been designed to be as quiet as possible, but bringing a warship to full power created energy signatures that could not be hidden forever. Gray knew that the Zelkari sensors would detect the startup sequence within minutes. After that, there would be no going back. Kethvor was examining a mining laser when his scanner suddenly started flashing warning signals. The device had detected a massive energy spike coming from somewhere deep beneath the lunar surface. The energy pattern was unlike anything in Zelkari databases, but it was clearly artificial and very powerful. Kethvor immediately contacted his ship and ordered them to begin deep scanning of the entire moon. Admiral Barnes received the alert from Foster and knew the moment of truth had arrived. She could try to evacuate the inspection team and claim there had been a reactor accident. She could attempt to destroy the evidence and hope the aliens would believe it was just an industrial mishap. Or she could do what Captain Sullivan had suggested and show the galaxy exactly what humans had been building in secret. Barnes made her choice and opened a communication channel to Captain Sullivan. She gave him authorization to proceed with full revelation protocols. Sullivan acknowledged the order and began bringing all of the Defiance's systems online at once. The ship's hull began to glow as power flowed through weapons that had never been fired in anger. The underground chamber that held the Defiance was enormous, but the ship still seemed to fill every available space. It was 800 meters long and covered with angular armor plates that made it look like a weapon that had been forged rather than built. When the main engines ignited, the entire facility shook with barely contained power. Kethvor felt the vibration through the soles of his feet and realized that something very large was moving beneath him. His ship's sensors were going crazy as they detected energy readings that should have been impossible for human technology to produce. The war commander ordered his security team to find the source of the disturbance immediately. Foster met them in the main corridor and calmly informed them that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. She led the shocked aliens to a viewing chamber that overlooked the hidden shipyard. When the blast shields retracted, Kethvor saw the USS Defiance in all its terrible glory. The Zelkari had built warships for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like the human vessel. Where their ships were designed for elegance and efficiency, the Defiance was built for destruction. Every line of the hull suggested violence, and every weapon mounting promised death to anyone who opposed it. Kethvor realized in that moment that humans had not just violated the treaty, They had made it completely meaningless. Captain Sullivan brought his ship out of the underground facility through a hidden launch tube that opened directly onto the lunar surface. The Defiance emerged into space like a nightmare coming to life. Its main railgun was longer than most alien destroyers and capable of firing projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The ship's armor was thick enough to withstand direct hits from plasma cannons that could level cities. But the Defiance was not alone. As Kethivor watched in growing horror, more human warships began emerging from hidden facilities across the solar system. Ships rose from asteroid bases and gas giant construction yards. Vessels that had been disguised as mining platforms suddenly revealed their true nature as mobile weapon platforms. Within an hour, 47 human warships had taken positions throughout Earth's solar system. The revelation spread across the galaxy faster than light communication could carry it. Every alien government received the same shocking message. Humanity had not just built a few illegal weapons. They had constructed an entire fleet of warships using technology that the Galactic Council did not even know existed. Dr. Gray transmitted technical specifications to prove that the human ships were real and functional. The data showed weapon systems that could punch through any known armor and defensive systems that could absorb incredible amounts of damage. But the most frightening aspect was the human approach to ship design itself. These vessels were built to keep fighting, even while being destroyed, and to use their own destruction as a weapon against enemies. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's history. Representatives from every member species demanded explanations from the human delegation. Some called for immediate military action against Earth. Others wanted to expel humanity from the Council permanently. A few suggested that the human ships should be destroyed before they could be used against Council forces. Admiral Barnes faced the Council's fury with quiet dignity. She explained that humanity had never intended to threaten their allies, but neither would they remain helpless while others decided their fate. The Treaty of Stellar Peace had left Earth defenseless against threats that the Council claimed did not exist. The Devourer invasion had proven that the galaxy was not as safe as the aliens pretended. Representative Thexnor was angrier than anyone had ever seen him. He accused humans of betraying the trust of the entire galaxy and of building weapons that were designed specifically to destroy Council ships. He demanded that every human warship be surrendered immediately, and that Earth's leaders be arrested for treaty violations. But the debate was interrupted by urgent emergency alerts from the front lines. The Devourer fleet had broken through the Council's defensive lines and was heading directly toward the core worlds where billions of aliens lived. The combined fleets of the Zelkari, Vorthak, and Lumeri had been unable to stop the invaders. Entire star systems were falling to the mysterious attackers every day. Thexnor found himself in a position he had never imagined possible. The humans he had spent decades trying to control were now the galaxy's only hope for survival. The ships he had tried to prevent them from building might be the only weapons capable of stopping the Devourers. With the enemy fleet bearing down on the most important worlds in Council space, Thexnor had to make a choice that went against everything he believed. The proud Zelkari war commander swallowed his anger and his pride, and made a request that would have been unthinkable just hours earlier. He asked humanity for help. He asked the species he had kept weak and defenseless to save the galaxy with the weapons they had built in defiance of his laws. Admiral Barnes looked at the alien who had spent years treating humans like dangerous children. She thought about all the times Earth had been refused permission to defend itself. She remembered every human crew that had died because they were not allowed to carry weapons. Then she gave the answer that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. She said yes. The Battle of Kepler's Gate began 3 days after the Council's desperate request for help. Admiral Barnes commanded the human fleet from the USS Retribution, a massive dreadnought that had been built inside a hollowed asteroid and was larger than anything the Zelkari had ever constructed. The ship's bridge was designed around human needs with multiple backup systems and armor thick enough to survive direct hits from weapons that could destroy planets. Captain Sullivan led the first attack, waving the USS Defiance, his crew ready for humanity's first real space battle. They had trained for years in simulators, but none of them knew what it would be like to face an enemy that had already destroyed dozens of worlds. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Their ships looked like they had been grown rather than built, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with alien life. The Devourers had never faced an enemy like humans before. Every other species in the galaxy fought space battles the same way their ancestors had fought thousands of years earlier. Ships would approach each other, exchange fire with energy weapons, and try to overwhelm enemy shields through sustained bombardment. It was civilized warfare with rules that everyone understood. Humans fought differently. Captain Sullivan's tactical computer calculated where the enemy ships would be in exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. The Defiance fired its main railgun at empty space, sending a solid projectile the size of a small building racing toward a point where no enemy ship currently existed. The projectile traveled at 8% of light speed and arrived exactly when the largest Devourer ship moved into that position. The impact was devastating. The kinetic energy released by the collision was equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The Devourer ship's organic armor, which had easily absorbed plasma fire from Council vessels, was completely overwhelmed by the solid projectile. The alien vessel split in half and exploded in a burst of strange green fire that lit up the entire battlefield. Dr. Walsh watched the battle from the Retribution's science station and analyzed Devourer tactics in real time. The alien invaders fought like apex predators who had never faced serious resistance. They relied on overwhelming force and biological adaptation to defeat their enemies. Their ships could regenerate damage, and their weapons grew stronger the longer they fired. But they had never encountered prey that fought back with calculated precision. Commander Peters commanded the USS Vengeance, a smaller ship that specialized in hit-and-run attacks. His vessel darted between the massive Devourer ships like a fighter attacking bombers. Peters used human tactics that alien commanders deemed suicidal, bringing his ship dangerously close to enemy vessels before firing railgun salvos at point-blank range. The Vengeance took a direct hit from a Devourer bioweapon that began eating through the ship's armor like acid. Peters knew his vessel was doomed, but he did not retreat. Instead, he plotted a collision course with the nearest enemy mothership and ordered his crew to abandon ship in armored escape pods. The Vengeance's reactor overloaded just as it struck the alien vessel, creating an explosion that tore through the Devourer formation like a shotgun blast. Lieutenant Colonel Foster commanded a squadron of assault ships that attacked in coordinated waves. Her vessels did not fight like individual ships trying to survive. They fought like parts of a single weapon designed to destroy everything in their path. When one ship was damaged, the others would move to protect it while it made repairs. When a ship was destroyed, the others would use the debris as cover while they continued their attack. The alien Council forces watched in amazement as human ships executed maneuvers that should have been impossible. The humans seemed to treat three-dimensional space like a mathematical problem that could be solved through precise calculations. Their ships moved in patterns that looked random but were actually carefully planned to create killing fields where enemy vessels would be destroyed by intersecting fire from multiple directions. But the Devourers were learning too. Their ships began to adapt to human tactics, growing new armor that could better absorb kinetic impacts. Their bioweapons evolved to counter human defensive systems. The alien fleet started using its own ships as shields, sacrificing smaller vessels to protect their larger motherships from human railgun fire. The tide of battle turned when the largest Devourer ship, a massive creature that was more like a living space station than a normal vessel, began approaching the human formation. The alien mothership was protected by dozens of smaller ships and bristled with bioweapons that could destroy entire fleets. Council intelligence had identified this ship as the command vessel for the entire Devourer invasion force. Captain Sullivan realized that conventional tactics would not work against such a massive target. The Defiance and the other assault ships could damage the mothership, but they could not destroy it before being overwhelmed by its escorts. Sullivan contacted Admiral Barnes and requested permission to implement Protocol 7, a battle plan that had never been tested in actual combat. Admiral Barnes approved the request and watched as the human fleet began a maneuver that defied every rule of space warfare. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer mothership with weapons, the humans decided to ram it with the largest ship they had. The USS Apocalypse had been built for exactly this purpose, constructed around a single massive railgun that ran the entire length of the vessel. The Apocalypse was not just a ship, It was a weapon the size of a city. Captain Rodriguez had volunteered to command the vessel, knowing that it would probably be a one-way mission. The ship's main gun could fire a projectile the size of a skyscraper at 10% of light speed. The weapon had never been tested at full power, because the recoil would probably destroy the ship that fired it. Rodriguez brought the Apocalypse into position, despite taking heavy fire from dozens of Devourer ships. The massive vessel's armor absorbed incredible amounts of damage while its escort ships fought desperately to keep enemy forces away from its flanks. When the Apocalypse reached optimal firing range, Rodriguez gave the order that changed the course of the entire war. The main gun fired with the power of a small star. The projectile punched through 17 Devourer ships before finally coming to rest deep inside the enemy mothership. The alien vessel's bioarmor could not absorb that much kinetic energy. The mothership began to break apart from the inside as the projectile's momentum was transferred to its internal structure. The explosion that followed could be seen from several light years away. The Devourer mothership did not just die. It disintegrated in a burst of energy that destroyed most of its escort fleet. The remaining alien ships suddenly lost coordination as their command structure collapsed. Without central control, the individual Devourer vessels began retreating toward the edge of the system. But victory came at a terrible cost. The human fleet had suffered 50% casualties in the battle. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in minutes. Crews that had trained together for decades were scattered across space in escape pods or lost forever when their vessels exploded. The USS Apocalypse was completely destroyed by the recoil from its own weapon, taking Captain Rodriguez and his entire crew with it. Admiral Barnes surveyed the aftermath of humanity's first major space battle and felt both pride and grief. The human fleet had proven that their approach to warfare worked, but it had also shown them how much more they needed to learn. The surviving crews were already planning improvements to their ship designs and developing new tactics based on what they had learned from fighting the Devourers. The Galactic Council representatives who had observed the battle were stunned into silence. They had watched humans sacrifice their lives without hesitation to achieve victory. They had seen ships designed not just to fight but to use their own destruction as a weapon against their enemies. The humans had saved the galaxy, but they had done it in a way that no other species could understand or replicate. The Devourer fleet was in full retreat, but everyone knew they would return with new adaptations and stronger ships. The war was far from over, and humanity had just announced to the galaxy that they would fight it using methods that other species found both terrifying and effective. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humans would do next. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Gate, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Treaty of Stellar Peace was nothing more than a historical document now, replaced by the Covenant of Mutual Defense with humanity as one of its primary signatories. Earth's shipyards worked around the clock to replace the vessels lost in the battle and to build new ships that incorporated lessons learned from fighting the Devourers. Admiral Barnes now held the rank of Fleet Admiral and commanded the Council's rapid response forces from her flagship, the USS Prometheus. The ship was named after the mythological figure who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Barnes thought the name was appropriate since humans had stolen the right to defend themselves and used it to save the galaxy. The irony was not lost on anyone who remembered the old days. The species that had once been deemed too dangerous to build warships now led the galaxy's defense against threats that could destroy entire civilizations. Barnes's fleet patrolled the Outer Rim territories where new Devourer incursions were detected almost every month. The enemy had not given up after their defeat at Kepler's Gate, but they had learned to be more careful about attacking defended systems. Captain Sullivan had become something of a legend among both human and alien crews. The tactics he had developed during the battle were now studied in military academies across a dozen worlds. Though few species could replicate humanity's willingness to accept heavy casualties in exchange for decisive victories, the USS Defiance had been rebuilt and upgraded with new weapon systems that made it even more dangerous than before. The ship served as the template for a new generation of human warships that combined the brutal effectiveness of the original design with improvements suggested by alien allies. Zelkari's shield technology had been adapted to work with human armor systems. Vorthak communication networks allowed human fleets to coordinate attacks across vast distances. Even the peaceful Lumeri had contributed advanced sensors that could detect enemy ships from incredible ranges. Dr. Gray's research had opened new frontiers in weapons technology that benefited the entire galaxy. Human innovations in kinetic warfare had revolutionized military thinking among species that had relied on energy weapons for thousands of years. The railgun technology that humans had perfected was now being installed on council ships, though most alien crews needed extensive training to use the weapons effectively. But humans had also learned from their alien allies. The defensive systems that other species had developed over millennia were superior to anything Earth had created in just 15 years of secret development. Human ships now carried shield generators alongside their heavy armor, creating vessels that could absorb even more punishment while continuing to fight. The political landscape of the galaxy had shifted dramatically as well. Representative Thexnor, who had once been humanity's greatest critic, now served as their advocate in the council chambers. He argued that the restrictions placed on humans had not just been wrong, but counterproductive. By forcing humanity to develop their military capabilities in secret, the council had created a force far more dangerous than anything they had feared. Thexnor had learned to respect human determination and ingenuity, even if he still did not fully understand their willingness to sacrifice lives for victory. He worked closely with Admiral Barnes to coordinate joint operations between human and alien forces. The partnership was not always smooth, but it was effective in ways that surprised everyone involved. Commander Peters, now Captain Peters, led joint training exercises with crews from every council species. The cultural exchange proved beneficial to all sides involved. Humans learned patience and long-term strategic thinking from their alien allies, while other species discovered the advantages of flexibility and rapid adaptation under pressure. The training programs revealed fundamental differences in how various species approached warfare. Aliens preferred to minimize casualties and fight prolonged campaigns that wore down enemies over time. Humans favored quick, decisive battles that achieved victory through overwhelming force applied at critical moments. Both approaches had their merits, and the combined fleets learned to use each method when it was most appropriate. Dr. Walsh continued his research into alien psychology and biology, but now his work focused on understanding the Devourers rather than humanity's allies. The enemy ships captured during various battles provided valuable intelligence about their capabilities and weaknesses. Walsh discovered that the Devourers were not just aggressive invaders but refugees from something even worse that existed in the galactic core. The revelation that the Devourers were fleeing from a greater threat changed everything the Council thought they knew about the current crisis. Intelligence reports suggested that an ancient enemy was stirring in the darkness between stars, something that had driven the Devourers from their original territory and forced them to attack younger civilizations in search of new homes. Captain Morrison finally commanded a proper warship of his own, the USS Liberty, after years of flying defenseless transport vessels. His crew was a mix of human veterans and alien specialists who had learned to work together despite their different approaches to space travel. Morrison's ship was designed for long-range reconnaissance and often spent months exploring the dangerous regions where Devourer activity was most likely to occur. During one of these missions, Morrison's crew detected massive energy signatures coming from the galactic core. The readings were unlike anything in their databases and suggested technology far more advanced than anything the Devourers possessed. Whatever was driving the biomechanical invaders toward civilized space was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. The emergency council session that followed, Morrison's report was even more dramatic than the one that had revealed humanity's secret fleet. Representatives from every member species gathered to discuss a threat that made their previous problems seem insignificant. The ancient enemy that was emerging from the galactic core had technology that could manipulate space and time itself. Fleet Admiral Barnes studied the intelligence reports and realized that humanity's approach to warfare might not be enough to defeat this new threat. The enemy could bend reality around their ships and create weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Traditional kinetic weapons would be useless against targets that could step outside normal space to avoid incoming fire. But humans had always been good at adapting to impossible situations. Dr. Gray's research teams began developing new technologies that combined human engineering with alien science in ways that had never been attempted before. The goal was to create weapons and defenses that could function across multiple dimensions and target enemies regardless of where they tried to hide. The construction of these new vessels required resources from across the galaxy and cooperation between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. The Zelkari provided advanced manufacturing techniques. The Vorthak contributed their understanding of hive mind coordination. The Lumeri shared their knowledge of dimensional physics, and humans provided the determination to build weapons that could kill gods. As alarms sounded across council space and long-range sensors detected the approach of the ancient enemy, Fleet Admiral Barnes looked out at her mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. The galaxy had once tried to keep humanity from building warships because they were afraid of what humans might do with such weapons. Now, as something that had existed since the dawn of time prepared to destroy everything they had built, they were grateful that humans had built them anyway. Captain Morrison powered up his ship's new dimensional weapons and transmitted a message that would become humanity's battle cry for the war to come. He said that humans were never allowed to be warriors, but they had become warriors regardless. Now they would prove that sometimes the greatest act of rebellion was simply refusing to let evil win without a fight. The
ancient enemy was coming and the galaxy was ready to meet
them with weapons forged in defiance and wielded by those who had learned that survival was worth any price.